I truly believed that being excluded from my sister's wedding was the worst insult my family could inflict on me. That was until my phone started vibrating like a jackhammer. A video appeared. White lace, cheering, and then a slap so loud it silenced the room. Millions of people were watching my family implode. The horror wasn't just the viral violence, it was realizing exactly why they had been so desperate to keep me away from that altar. My name is Nora Hughes, and I had just spent the last 10 hours staring at the jagged lines of insurance claims that refused to add up. Working at Hearthline Claims and Forensics does something to your brain. It rewrites your baseline for human behavior. You stop expecting people to tell the truth and start expecting them to cover their tracks. I rub my temples. The fluorescent hum of the office finally replaced by the silence of my car. All I wanted was to drive home, pour a glass of cheap wine, and forget that people were generally disappointing. I should have known better than to unlock my phone. The screen lit up with a notification, bright and cheerful, piercing the dim interior of my sedan. It was a photo from my younger sister, Sloane. The caption read, "Final fitting. Cannot wait for the big day. October 14th is coming so fast." I stared at the image. Sloane looked beautiful. Undeniably so, standing on a pedestal in a cloud of white silk and lace that probably cost more than my first car. Behind her, in the reflection of the boutique's mirror, I saw the blurry shapes of her bridesmaids. There was our cousin, Jenna. There was her college roommate, Ashley. There was a girl I did not even recognize holding a glass of champagne. But there was no Nora. I felt a cold prickle at the base of my neck. I was her older sister. I was the one who had paid the deposit on her first apartment when she dropped out of grad school. I was the one who managed her credit card debt when she maxed out 3 cards in a single summer. Logic dictated I should be standing there, holding the train of her dress, or at least holding a glass of champagne. I refreshed the feed. The algorithm, cruel and efficient, decided I needed to see more. There was a post from my mother, Patricia Hughes. She had posted a close-up of a heavy, cream-colored card with gold foil lettering. So proud to send these out. The caption chirped, "The most beautiful day for our beautiful girl." I zoomed in. The calligraphy was exquisite. The venue was listed as Magnolia Crest Estate. I knew that place. It was expensive. It was exclusive. And judging by the stack of envelopes on my mother's dining table in the background of the photo, there were at least 200 guests invited. I scrolled down. My father, Gordon, was in the next photo, standing next to a hand-painted wooden sign that read, "Welcome to the wedding of Sloane and Gavin." He was grinning, a genuine, crinkle-eyed smile that I had not seen directed at me in years. Below the photos, the comments section was alive. Aunts, uncles, distant cousins, neighbors I had not seen since high school. They were all chiming in. "Received ours today. Can't wait," wrote Aunt Linda. "Already booked the hotel," commented Uncle Ted. Everyone was invited, everyone except me. My thumb hovered over the screen. Surely, this was a mistake. Maybe mine was lost in the mail. Maybe they assumed that because I was the sister, I did not need a formal invitation. It was a weak theory, but it was the only shield I had against the humiliation rising in my chest. Then, a text message popped up at the top of my screen. It was from Aunt Linda. "Hey Nora, just a heads up. I think they swapped our seats. I am at table 5 now, so you might be at table 9 with the cousins. Just wanted to let you know so we can coordinate drinks." My stomach dropped. They swapped our seats. That meant there had been a seat for me. I was on the chart. I was in the plan. And then, at some point between the drafting of the seating chart and the mailing of those gold-foiled envelopes, someone had taken a red pen and crossed out my name. I did not reply to Linda. Instead, I dialed my mother. The phone rang 3 times before she picked up. "Nora?" Her voice was breathless, high-pitched. It was her performance voice, the one she used when she was pretending everything was perfect while the house was burning down. "I can't really talk right now. Honey, we are swamped with the florist." "I did not get an invitation," I said. I did not have the energy for pleasantries. There was a pause on the other end. a beat of silence that lasted exactly 2 seconds too long. "Oh," she said. The brightness did not leave her voice, but it became brittle. "Well, you know how the mail is these days. It is a disaster." "Mom," I said, my voice flat. "Aunt Linda just texted me about seating arrangements. She got hers, Uncle Ted got his, the neighbors got theirs. Why did I not get one?" I heard her sigh, a long, dramatic exhale that sounded like static over the line. "Nora, please, do not make a scene. Not now. Sloan is under so much pressure." "I am not making a scene," I said, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. "I am asking why my sister is getting married in 2 months and I am learning about the venue from Instagram." "Sloan is just sensitive right now," my mother said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "You know how you get, Nora. You ask questions. You analyze things. You are always so critical." "Critical?" I repeated. "I am her sister." "It is not just that," my mother said, and then she rushed the next words out, as if she wanted to get them over with. "It is Gavin, the groom." I froze. Gavin Mercer, a man I had met exactly 3 times, a man who smiled too much and answered direct questions with vague anecdotes. "What about him?" I asked. "He does not feel comfortable with you there," she said. The sentence hung in the air between us, heavy and suffocating. "He does not feel comfortable," I repeated slowly. "A man who has been in Sloane's life for less than 1 year is dictating whether her sister attends her wedding, and you and Dad are okay with that?" "He wants the day to be about love and positivity," my mother said, reciting a line that sounded rehearsed. "He thinks you bring a certain intensity. He is very protective of Sloane. He thinks you judge their relationship." I looked out the windshield. Beyond the parking lot, the harbor of Charleston stretched out, dark and choppy under the twilight sky. The water was black, churning against the concrete pilings. "I see," I said. "Honey, look," my mother said, her tone shifting to a manipulative softness. "We can do a family dinner afterwards, just us, when things calm down. We just want to keep the peace, you understand, right? You are the strong one. You can handle this." The strong one. The code word for the one we can treat like garbage because she won't break. "Nora?" she asked when I did not respond. "I understand," I said. My voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. It was the voice I used when I caught a claimant lying about a whiplash injury and I was about to deny their payout. "Enjoy the flowers, Mom." I hung up before she could say anything else. I sat there in the silence of my car, the engine cold. I looked at the dark water. A man named Gavin Mercer, a man who had appeared out of nowhere, had decided I was a threat. He had convinced my parents, my spineless father and my image-obsessed mother, that I was the villain in this fairy tale, and they had agreed. They had chosen the stranger over the daughter who had balanced their checkbooks and mediated their arguments for 20 years. A wave of nausea hit me, followed immediately by a surge of icy clarity. I was done. I was not going to beg. I was not going to call Sloane and cry. I was not going to drive to their house and demand an explanation. I opened Instagram again. I went to Sloane's profile, unfollow. I went to my mother's profile, mute. I went to my father's profile, mute. "If I am not family enough for the wedding," I whispered to the empty car, "then I am not family enough for the emergencies. No more bailouts, no more late-night crisis management, no more being the fixer." I was about to lock my phone and throw it onto the passenger seat when something caught my eye. I had screenshotted the photo of Sloane earlier, force of habit from my job, document everything, and I pulled it up again to look at the caption one last time, in the original post, right next to the date. Sloane had tagged Gavin Mercer, 82. I toggled back to the live Instagram app. I refreshed the photo. The tag was gone. I frowned. I tapped on the photo where his tag had been. Nothing. I went to the search bar and typed in the handle I had just seen. User not found. I stared at the screen. It had been there 5 minutes ago. I was certain of it. In the time it took for me to have a 3-minute conversation with my mother. The groom had not just untagged himself, he had nuked his entire profile. People hide things before weddings all the time. They hide old photos of ex-girlfriends or embarrassing college party videos. But deleting an entire existence right as the invitations hit the mailboxes? Right as the spotlight turned on? My investigator brain, the one that I had tried to shut off for the drive home, woke up. It hummed to life, loud and urgent. You do not scrub your digital footprint unless you are afraid of what someone might find. He does not want me there because I am critical, I murmured, recalling my mother's words. No, that was not it. I looked at the empty space on the screen where his name used to be. He did not want me there because he knew what I did for a living, and he knew that if I sat in that room long enough, looking at him, I would see something he was desperate to keep hidden. I started the car. The engine purred to life. I was not invited to the wedding, but for the first time all night, I finally felt like I had a purpose. I pulled out of the parking lot, the tires crunching on the gravel, leaving the silence behind. They wanted me to stay away? Fine. But they had just given me the one thing I could never resist, a loose thread, and I was going to pull on it until the whole thing unraveled. The drive to Wilmington, North Carolina, took exactly 3 hours and 12 minutes. I did not turn on the radio. I did not call anyone. I drove in silence, rehearsing the conversation in my head not as a daughter returning to her childhood home, but as an investigator preparing to interview hostile witnesses. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked manicured to an inch of its life. The hydrangeas were aggressive in their bloom, blue and purple heads bobbing in the coastal breeze. It was a picture of suburban perfection, the kind of house where bad things did not happen, or at least, where bad things were never discussed above a whisper. My mother, Patricia, met me at the door before I could even knock. She was wearing a floral apron, her hair stiff with hairspray, a weaponized smile plastered across her face. "Nora!" she exclaimed, reaching out to hug me. Her embrace was light, barely touching, like she was afraid I might stain her clothes. "We were not expecting you until Sunday. I think we need to talk about why I am not coming on Sunday," I said, stepping past her into the foyer. "Or any other day involved in the wedding." My father, Gordon, was standing in the living room. He held a newspaper, but he was not reading it. He looked at me over the top of his reading glasses, his expression guarded. He did not smile. He looked like a man who had been briefed on a situation and was trying to remember his lines. "Come sit," my mother said, bustling toward the kitchen island. "I made those lemon squares you like, and I have fresh iced tea. Let us just sit and have a nice visit." She was building a wall. It was a strategy I had seen 1,000 times in claims adjustments. Distract with hospitality. Bury the conflict under layers of sugar and politeness until the other person feels too guilty to ask the hard questions. I did not sit. I stood by the granite counter, watching her arrange the squares on a ceramic platter. "I do not want tea, Mom," I said. My voice was steady. "I want to know why I had to find out from an Instagram algorithm that my sister is getting married without me." Patricia froze for a second, her hand hovering over the napkins. Then she resumed her motion, slower this time. "We did not want to hurt your feelings," she said, not looking at me. "It is a very small ceremony, intimate. There are 200 people on the guest list," I said. "I saw the stack of invitations in your photo. I saw Aunt Linda's text about table 5. Do not lie to me about the size of the wedding." My father cleared his throat. "It is complicated." "Nora, it is not complicated," I countered, turning to him. "It is actually very binary. Either I am invited or I am not. And since I am clearly not, I want to know the criteria." My mother finally turned around. She wiped her hands on her apron, her face hardening. The pleasant hostess mask slipped, revealing the steel underneath. "You make Sloane uncomfortable," she said, The accusation landed in the room with a dull thud. I make her uncomfortable, I repeated. How? You are always so intense, Patricia said, waving a hand vaguely in my direction. You scrutinize everything. You judge her choices. You have always been like that. You do not know how to just be happy for people. You have to analyze everything to death. I analyze things because usually, when Sloane makes choices, I am the one cleaning up the debris, I said. I did not scrutinize her choices when I paid off her credit card debt 3 years ago. That was $5,000. Mom, did my money make her uncomfortable then? That is different, my mother snapped. That is family helping family. Right, I said. Family. So I am family when the checkbook needs to open, but I am a stranger when the champagne is being poured. You just do not know how to keep the peace, my mother said, her voice rising. You would come to the wedding and you would find something wrong with the venue, or the dress, or the groom. You would make a face. You would ask a question that would ruin the mood. We just want one day where Sloane does not feel like she is being graded. I looked at my father. He was staring at the floor, studying the pattern of the rug. Who made the decision? I asked. Was it Sloane, or was it someone else? My mother pressed her lips together. The silence stretched, thick and tension-filled. She looked at my father. A quick, darting glance that screamed for help. It does not matter, she said. It matters to me. I said, because I know Sloane. She is flighty. She is impulsive. But she is not cruel. She would not cut me out unless someone was whispering in her ear that I was the enemy. Gavin just wants the day to be smooth, my father blurted out. The name hung in the air. My mother shot him a look that could have stripped paint off a wall. Gavin, I said, letting the name roll off my tongue. So, the man who has been in our lives for less than 10 months is making executive decisions about the family roster. He is her husband-to-be, my mother said defensively. He protects her. He sees how upset she gets after she talks to you. He just wants her to be happy. He sees how upset she gets, I said, stepping closer. Or does he make her upset and then blame it on me? Because that is a very specific dynamic. Mom, isolating a partner from their support system, creating a narrative where the family is the problem. See? My mother cried, pointing a finger at me. This is exactly what we mean. You are doing it right now. You are turning a simple wedding preference into some kind of psychological conspiracy. This is why you cannot be there. I looked at them. Really looked at them. My father, the silent enabler, my mother, the architect of appearances. They were terrified. They were terrified of Gavin Mercer. Or perhaps they were just terrified that if they pushed back, Sloane would cut them off too. They had chosen the path of least resistance, and that path ran right over me. Okay, I said. I felt a strange calm wash over me. It was the feeling of a case being closed. The evidence was all there. The verdict was in. Okay? My mother asked, blinking. She seemed surprised that I was not yelling. I get it, I said. You have made your choice. You want a smooth day. You want to play happy family with the man who hates me. That is fine. I walked over to the kitchen island, picked up my purse, and slung it over my shoulder. But here is the new reality, I said, my voice dropping to a register that was devoid of all emotion. If I am not family enough to stand in the photos, then I am not family enough to be the safety net. What are you talking about? My father asked, finally looking up. The apartment lease in Charleston that I co-signed because Sloane did not have the credit score, I said. I am contacting the landlord tomorrow to remove my name. If she defaults, that is on you. The emergency fund I keep for her car repairs, that is gone. The $3,000 I sent you, Dad, to help with the catering deposit, consider that my wedding gift. Do not ask for another cent. Nora, you cannot do that, my mother said, her face paling. The landlord requires a guarantor. She will lose the apartment. Then maybe Gavin can sign for it, I said. Since he is the protector, "You are being vindictive," my mother hissed. "You are punishing your sister because your feelings are hurt." "No," I said. "I am establishing boundaries. You told me I was the one who could handle it because I am strong. Well, being strong means I also have the strength to walk away. You want me to be a stranger? Congratulations. You got your wish." I turned and walked toward the door. My heels clicked loudly on the hardwood floor. A steady, rhythmic countdown to my departure. "Nora!" my mother called after me. I did not stop. I opened the heavy front door and the humid North Carolina air hit me. I was halfway to my car when my mother appeared in the doorway. She did not step out onto the porch. She stayed in the frame, holding onto the door jamb as if she needed the support. "Nora," she said, her voice different now. It was lower, urgent. "Do not contact Gavin." I stopped. I turned back to look at her. "Excuse me?" "Do not call him," she said. "Do not text him. Do not try to meet him to clear the air. Just stay away from him." It was a strange thing to say. Usually, in these family squabbles, the goal is reconciliation. The mother says, "Talk to him, work it out." But she was not asking for peace. She was asking for distance. "Why?" I asked. "Are you afraid I will upset him?" She looked at me, and for a split second, the anger in her eyes was replaced by something else. Fear, genuine, unadulterated fear. "Just leave him alone," she said. "For your own sake." She closed the door before I could answer. The lock clicked into place with a sound that felt final. I stood there for a moment, staring at the closed door. For your own sake, that was not a request. That was a warning. And coming from a woman who cared more about appearances than anything else on earth. It was the most honest thing she had said all day. I got into my car and started the engine. As I backed out of the driveway, I looked at the house one last time. It still looked perfect. But now, I knew that the rot was inside, deep in the foundation, and they had just locked me out, thinking it would keep them safe. They had no idea that being outside was the only thing that gave me a clear view of the cracks. The salt air at the harbor usually cleared my head, but today it felt heavy, clinging to my skin like a second layer of humidity. I sat at a corner table at the Roasted Bean, a small cafe tucked away from the main tourist drag of Charleston. Across from me sat Tessa Lane, my best friend since our freshman year of college. Tessa worked as a high-end event coordinator, the kind who managed weddings with six-figure budgets and brides who requested imported butterflies. Usually, Tessa was the loudest person in the room, full of stories about disastrous toasts or groomsmen passing out in fountains. Today, she looked like she was sitting on a wiretap. She kept glancing at the door, her fingers shredding the paper wrapper of her straw. "You are making me nervous." "Tess," I said, taking a sip of my black coffee. "Just say it." Tessa leaned in, lowering her voice until it was barely audible over the hiss of the espresso machine. "I have friends at Magnolia Crest," she said. "The venue coordinator and I worked together at the Bridal Expo last year. She called me this morning because she saw your name on a list." I felt a muscle in my jaw tighten. "The guest list? We established I am not on that." "No," Tessa said, and her eyes were full of a pity I hated. "The security list. Nora. They have a binder at the guard station. It has photos of people who are strictly prohibited from entering the property. Your photo is the first one. They have been instructed that if you show up, they are to call the police immediately for trespassing." I set my cup down. It clattered against the saucer. Banned. Not just excluded, but treated like a stalker or a violent ex-girlfriend. My parents had not just uninvited me, they had criminalized my presence. "There is a note next to your photo," Tessa continued, her voice trembling slightly. "It says, 'Highly volatile and prone to public outbursts.' Nora, they are painting you as dangerous." I stared out the window at the boats bobbing in the water. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, the familiar urge to drive to my parents' house and scream until my throat was raw. But I pushed it down. That was what the old Nora would do. The old Nora would prove them right. "Okay," I said. My voice was ice cold. Tessa blinked. Okay? That is it? You are not going to explode? I am done exploding, I said. What else? Tessa hesitated. She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. She tapped the screen a few times and then slid it across the table to me. I debated showing you this, she said, but if they are treating you like a threat, you need to know who you are dealing with. My friend took this 2 nights ago at the Gilded Cage. It is a jazz bar downtown, very dark, very discreet. I looked at the screen. The photo was grainy, taken in low light, but the subject was unmistakable. It was Gavin Mercer. He was sitting in a leather booth, holding a whiskey glass. But he was not alone. A woman with platinum blonde hair was leaning into him, her hand resting familiarly on his forearm. His body language was not that of a man having a business meeting. He was leaning in, whispering something into her ear that made her throw her head back in laughter. Cheating? I asked, studying the pixels. 2 months before the wedding? Maybe, Tessa said. But that is not the weird part. My friend knows the bartender. She asked who had the table reserved. She thought maybe it was a celebrity because they were tucked in the back. Tessa paused, waiting for me to look up. The reservation was not under Gavin Mercer, she said. It was under the name Silas Thorne. I zoomed in on the photo. Gavin's face was relaxed, confident. He looked like a man who was playing a game he knew he would win. Send it to me, I said. Nora, do not do anything crazy, Tessa warned. I'm just collecting data, I said. Send me the timestamp, the location, and the name of the bartender if you have it. After I left Tessa, I did not go home. I went to my office. It was a Saturday, and the building was empty. I needed the high-speed connection and the dual monitors. I needed to see the world through the lens of a forensic claim. I pulled up the public databases, the ones that usually cost money to access. I typed in Gavin Mercer. I expected to find the usual trail of a 30-something man in America, a few speeding tickets, maybe a past address in a college town, a LinkedIn profile, a voter registration. The screen refreshed. The results were thin, suspiciously thin. There was a Gavin Mercer registered in South Carolina for the last 18 months. Before that, there was a gap, a complete digital void for 3 years, and before that, a scatter of information in Arizona that led to dead ends, no yearbooks, no employment history beyond a vague consulting firm that had been dissolved. It was not the profile of a normal person. It was the profile of a ghost, or someone who had been scrubbed clean. My mind was racing, connecting invisible dots. When my phone pinged, it was an email notification. I glanced at it, expecting a work update. Subject: payment confirmation. Magnolia Crest Estate. My heart stopped. I opened the email. Dear customer, thank you for your payment of $4,500 for the lighting and staging package. Your transaction has been processed successfully. I stared at the numbers. $4,500. I scrolled down to the payment method. Card ending in 4198. I pulled my wallet out of my bag so fast I nearly ripped the zipper. I looked at my primary credit card. The last 4 digits were 4198. I had not authorized this charge. I had not spoken to Magnolia Crest. I had just been told by my best friend that I was banned from the property. And yet, my credit card was paying for the spotlights that would shine on my sister's dress. I logged into my banking app. There it was. Pending transaction. Magnolia Crest. $4,500. Rage, hot and blinding, flooded my vision. They stole from me. My parents, or Gavin, or someone in that house had taken my card information they likely had on file from when I helped them with the anniversary party 2 years ago, and they were using it to fund the wedding I was excluded from. I reached for the phone to call the bank. My finger hovered over the dial button. Stop. The word echoed in my head. If I called the bank now, I would report it as fraud. The bank would call my parents. My mother would cry and say it was a misunderstanding, that I had offered to pay and was now reneging because I was jealous. They would spin it. They would make me look petty. Or worse, Gavin would know I was watching. This was a trap. It had to be. A charge this size was designed to provoke a reaction. They wanted me to call screaming. They wanted me to storm over there so they could point at me and say, "See? She is crazy. She is ruining our joy over money." I slowly lowered the phone. I took a deep breath. Counting to 10. I needed to be smarter than them. I needed to be the investigator, not the sister. I went back to the email. I clicked on the attached receipt. It was a PDF file. I scrolled to the bottom of the document. There, on the signature line, was a scrawl of black ink. Electronic signatures were common now, little more than typed names or squiggles made with a mouse. But this one was different. It looked like my signature. The loop of the N was high, just like I wrote it. The cross of the H was sharp, but the tail of the A was wrong. It curled up instead of down. I opened a file on my computer labeled Case File, Hugh's Wedding. I dragged the email into it. I dragged the photo Tessa sent me into it. I dragged the screenshot of the bank transaction into it. I was not going to dispute the charge today. I was going to let it post. I was going to let the money leave my account and land in the venue's bank, because once the money moved, it was not just a family dispute anymore. It was wire fraud. It was identity theft. It was a felony. I stared at the signature on the screen, the forgery that was meant to bind me to their happiness. "You want my support?" I whispered to the empty office. "Fine, I will support the whole thing. And when the bill comes due, I will make sure everyone knows exactly who signed for it." I leaned back in my chair, the cold light of the monitor illuminating my face. The slow burn had started, and I was going to watch it consume them, piece by piece. October 14th arrived not with a bang, but with a suffocating silence in my apartment. I had turned off the television. I had put my laptop in a drawer. I was determined to treat it like any other Saturday. I made coffee. I folded laundry. I told myself that by now. Sloane was walking down the aisle. By now. They were saying vows. By now. My mother was crying her performative tears, and my father was patting Gavin on the back, welcoming him into the fold that I had been exiled from. I was reaching for a book on the coffee table when my phone, which I had left face down on the kitchen counter, began to vibrate. It did not ring. It buzzed, and it kept buzzing. It was a continuous, angry hum against the granite, like a trapped insect. I ignored it for 10 seconds, then 20, but the vibration did not stop. It was not a phone call. It was a deluge of notifications. I walked over and flipped the screen up. My lock screen was a wall of text messages. Tessa asked, "Did you see this?" A cousin I hadn't spoken to in 5 years wrote, "Oh my God." Nora wrote a cousin I had not spoken to in 5 years. A former neighbor asked, "Is Sloane okay?" My stomach turned to water. I unlocked the phone and opened Instagram. I did not have to search for anything. The algorithm had already done the work. The first video on my feed was from a live stream that had ended 3 minutes ago. The user was one of Sloane's bridesmaids, Ashley. The caption was just a row of broken heart emojis. I pressed play. The video was shaky, filmed vertically in the grand ballroom of Magnolia Crest. The lighting was spectacular, a wash of amber and soft white that illuminated the high ceilings. The very lighting I had unknowingly paid $4,500 for. The band was playing a disjointed version of a jazz standard, but the music was drowned out by the sound of shouting. In the center of the dance floor, Sloane was standing in her white dress. The train was dirty at the hem. Her veil was askew. She looked tiny, shrinking into herself. Looming over her was Gavin. His face was a color I had never seen on a human being. A deep, mottled purple. The veins in his neck were cords of tension. He was not whispering. He was screaming, but the audio was clipping, turning his words into distorted noise. I caught fragments. Disrespect. My day. Always about you. Guests were standing in a circle, phones raised like a firing squad. No one was stepping in. Not the groomsmen. Not my father. Then, it happened. Gavin raised his hand. The movement was fast. a blur against the amber lights. The sound was not a thud. It was a sharp, sickening crack that cut through the music and the murmuring crowd. It sounded like a dry branch snapping in a winter forest. Sloane's head snapped to the side. Her hand flew to her cheek. She stumbled back, catching herself on the edge of the head table. A glass vase shattered on the floor. The ballroom went dead silent. For 1 second, the only sound was the hum of the air conditioning and the frantic breathing of the person holding the camera. Then, the chaos broke. I dropped the phone on the counter. My hands were shaking so badly I could not pick it up again. I stared at the black screen. The image of my sister's head snapping back burned into my retinas. I forced myself to pick it up. I had to see the rest. I refreshed the feed. The hashtag Magnolia Crest Wedding was already trending locally. There were 5 new videos. 10, 20. I clicked on another angle. This one was closer. I could see the red handprint blooming on Sloane's pale skin. I could hear her sobbing, a high, thin sound that broke my heart into 1,000 pieces. But then I saw something that made my blood run cold. In the background of the 3rd video, just to the left of the cake table, was my mother. She was not running to Sloane. She was not screaming at Gavin. She was not calling the police. Patricia Hughes was rushing toward a guest who was holding a phone. She was waving her hands, her face twisted in panic. I could read her lips perfectly. "Stop filming. Put that away. Please, stop filming." She was doing damage control. Her daughter had just been assaulted in front of 200 people, and my mother's first instinct was to protect the brand. She was worried about the scandal, not the bruise. I felt a surge of nausea so violent I had to lean against the sink. A notification from a local news app popped up. Police responding to disturbance at luxury wedding venue in Charleston. My phone rang. The screen lit up with the word, "Mom." I stared at it. I watched it ring. 1, 2, 3, I answered. "Nora?" Her voice was unrecognizable. It was a jagged tier of sound, hysterical and breathless. "Nora, you have to come. You have to come right now." "I saw the video," I said. My voice was hollow. "It is a disaster," she wailed. "The police are here. They are putting Gavin in a car. Sloane is in the bridal suite, and she will not stop crying, and people are taking pictures, and I do not know what to tell them. You have to come handle this. You know how to talk to the police. You know how to fix this." "Fix it?" I asked. "You want me to fix the fact that your son-in-law just assaulted your daughter?" "It was a mistake," my mother sobbed. "He was stressed. The alcohol. It was just a moment, but now everyone is blowing it up. Nora, please, you are the strong one. Come down here and tell them it is a misunderstanding. Make them delete the videos." "I cannot make 200 people delete videos." "Mom," I said, "and I am not going to." "How can you be so cruel?" she screamed. "Your sister is ruined. Our family is going to be the laughingstock of the state. You have to help us." I closed my eyes. I pictured the empty seat at table 5 where I should have been. I pictured the security guard with my photo in his binder. I pictured the fake signature on the lighting contract. "You told me I was not family," I said. "You told me I make things difficult. You told me Gavin wanted a smooth day. Well, Mom, this is the day he gave you." "Nora, please." "I will help Sloane," I said, my voice hardening into steel. "I will call a lawyer. I will find her a safe place to stay that is not your house or his house. But I am not coming to Magnolia Crest to act as a human shield for your reputation. I am not coming there to help you sweep a crime under the rug. If you do not come now, do not bother coming at all," she threatened, reverting to her old tactics. "I think we established that rule when you sent out the invitations." I said, "I am hanging up now. Tell the police the truth. Mom, for once in your life, just tell the truth." I ended the call. The silence rushed back in. But it was different now. It was charged with electricity. I stood there, gripping the phone, my heart hammering against my ribs. I had done it. I had refused to play the role they had scripted for me. I had refused to be the fixer. The phone buzzed one last time. It was not a text from my mother. It was not a text from Tessa. It was from a number I did not recognize. The area code was local. I opened the message. If you open your mouth to the police or the press, you will be the one paying for this wedding. Every single cent. We know about the signature. I stared at the words. The threat was precise. It was calculated. It was not sent by a drunk man in a police car. It was sent by someone who knew exactly how the financial trap had been set. I looked at the time. It was 9:45 in the evening. The wedding was over. The marriage had ended before it began. But the war had just started. And whoever sent that text had just made a fatal error. They thought threatening me with debt would make me silent. They did not realize that they had just given me the motive I needed to burn their entire scheme to the ground. The morning sun hit my living room floor with a cheerful indifference that felt like a personal insult. The world outside was waking up to Sunday brunch and church bells. But inside the internet, my sister was being destroyed. I sat on my couch with my laptop open, watching the wreckage of Sloane's life accumulate in real time. The video of the slap had crossed 5 million views. The comments were a cesspool of victim blaming and vigilante justice. People were analyzing Sloane's posture, her flinch response, theorizing that she must have provoked him. Others were hunting Gavin, posting addresses that turned out to be wrong, threatening his former employers. The hashtag #TheSlapBride was trending #1 in the country. My family, however, was not concerned with Sloane's mental state. I knew this because the family group chat, which I had been re-added to by a panic-stricken cousin at 3 in the morning, was devoid of questions like, "Is she safe?" or "Does she need a doctor?" Instead, it was a stream of PR panic. How do we get the video taken down? Who knows a contact at Twitter? Tell Aunt Linda to stop commenting. We need a statement that says it was a medical episode. They were trying to put a lid on a volcano. At 10 o'clock, there was a knock at my door. It was a hesitant sound. 3 light raps that barely registered. I opened the door to find my father standing on the welcome mat. Gordon Hughes never visited me. In the 10 years I had lived in this apartment, he had been inside exactly twice, and both times were to help move heavy furniture. He stood there now in wrinkled khakis and a polo shirt that looked like he had slept in it. He wasn't holding a peace offering. He wasn't holding coffee. He was clutching a thick manila envelope to his chest like a shield. "Nora," he said. His voice was rough, like he had been shouting or crying, or perhaps both. "Dad," I said, not moving out of the doorway. "If you are here to ask me to write a press release, the answer is no." He flinched. "It is not that. Can I come in? Please. Your mother, she is a wreck. She cannot handle this right now." I stepped aside. He walked in and stood in the middle of the living room, looking around as if he had never seen a bookshelf or a lamp before. He didn't sit down until I pointed to the armchair. "Sloane is at the hotel," he said, staring at his knees. "She is sedated. The doctor gave her something." "Good," I said. "She needs to be away from him. Gavin is well." "Gavin is dealing with the legal side," Dad said, waving a hand dismissively. "That is not why I am here." He placed the envelope on the coffee table. He smoothed the clasp with his thumb, over and over again. "We have a bit of a situation," he began, the words coming out in a rush. "With the vendors and the financing, you know how expensive these things get. The venue alone was, well, it was a lot." "I know," I said, crossing my arms. "I saw the $4,500 charge on my card for lighting. I assumed you were here to bring me a check for that." He didn't reach for his checkbook. He looked even more terrified. "It is a little more complicated than that," he said. "See, Gavin, his credit is tied up in his business, liquidity issues, and your mother and I, well, our retirement accounts are fixed. We needed bridge financing, just short term, until the wedding gifts came in and Gavin's big contract closed next month." The air in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. I looked at the envelope. "What did you do, Dad?" "It was just easier," he mumbled, refusing to meet my eyes. "To keep the rates down, to avoid the intrusive background checks they do on new businesses. We thought, well, your credit is perfect. Tier 1. What did you do? I repeated, my voice louder. He pushed the envelope toward me. It is all in there, just until next month. We were going to pay it off before you even noticed. We had a plan. Nora, truly, I sat down and opened the envelope. I pulled out a stack of papers thick enough to be a novel. The first document was a vendor contract for luxury catering services. The total was $28,000. At the bottom, next to the line for guarantor, was a signature, Nora Hughes. I flipped the page. A contract for a 12-piece band, $15,000, guarantor, Nora Hughes. I flipped again. Floral arrangements, import fees for tulips from Holland, $12,000. My hands started to shake, not from fear, but from a rage so cold it felt like liquid nitrogen in my veins. I kept flipping until I reached the bottom of the stack. It was a loan document from a private lending firm I had never heard of. A bridge loan, high interest, short term. I looked at the principal amount. $120,000. I stared at the number. $120,000. It wasn't just a wedding, it was a heist. You took out a loan, I said, my voice barely a whisper. In my name, for a party I was banned from attending. It is not only in your name, Dad said quickly, desperation creeping into his tone. You are just the co-signer, the backer. It was the only way to get the approval in time for the deposit deadlines. Gavin said it was standard practice for family businesses. Gavin, I spat the name out. And you listened to him? You committed fraud because a man you barely know told you it was standard practice? Your mother said it would be okay, Dad blurted out. The defense of a coward. She said, Nora will be fine. Nora always lands on her feet. She has that good job. She can handle it if there is a bump in the road. We didn't do it to hurt you. We did it because you are the strong one. I looked at him, really looked at him, and I saw the truth that had been hiding in plain sight for my entire life. They hadn't just uninvited me because I was difficult. They hadn't just excluded me because Gavin didn't like me. They had excluded me because it is much easier to steal from someone when you don't have to look them in the eye. They had dehumanized me. To them, I wasn't a daughter or a sister. I was an asset class. I was a credit score with a pulse. I was the break glass in case of emergency fund that they had smashed open without a second thought. I am not the strong one, I said. Standing up, I felt tall. I felt dangerous. I am the victim, and you are the perpetrator. Nora, don't use words like that, he pleaded. We are family. No, I said. We are co-defendants. I walked over to my desk and grabbed my phone. I didn't call the police, not yet. I switched to the camera app. What are you doing? Dad asked, half rising from his chair. Sit down, I ordered. The command was sharp, authoritative. It was the voice I used when I caught a claimant trying to delete evidence. He sat. I began to photograph every single page. I captured the loan terms. I captured the vendor invoices. I captured the fake signatures. I moved with the efficiency of a machine. Click, flip, click, flip. Nora, please, Dad whimpered. If this gets out, Gavin could go to jail. Your mother, the shame would kill her. The shame didn't stop her from eating the cake I paid for, I said, snapping a photo of the catering contract. I finished photographing the documents. Then I sat down at my laptop. I opened a new folder. Evidence_financial_fraud. I uploaded the photos immediately to a cloud server with two-factor authentication. You are going to leave those papers here, I told him. And then you are going to leave. And if you or Mom or Gavin try to move a single cent out of any account you control, I will have the forensic accountants trace it before the transaction even clears. Dad looked defeated. He looked like a man who had gambled his life savings on a horse that broke its leg at the gate. He stood up. His shoulders slumped. We just wanted her to have a perfect day, he whispered. You bought her a perfect day with my life, I said. Get out. He left. The door clicked shut. I was alone again. The silence was back. But now it was heavy with the weight of $120,000. I sat back down at the coffee table and picked up the loan document again. The bridge loan, the big one. I looked at the signature page. It wasn't just a forgery, it was a notarized forgery. There was a stamp, digital but legally binding, verifying that Nora Hughes had signed this document in the presence of a notary public. I looked at the name of the notary, Jane Doe. Online notary services, a remote verification service. Then I looked at the timestamp. Signed on August 12th. Time 2:15 in the afternoon. My blood ran cold. August 12th. 2:15 in the afternoon. I knew exactly where I was at that moment. I opened my work calendar to confirm. I was in a secure evidence locker at Hearthline Claims, a facility that requires you to check your phone and all electronics at the front desk, a facility with biometric logs for entry and exit, a facility where there is absolutely no internet access and no way to sign a digital document. I looked at the fake signature, verified by a digital stamp that claimed I was there. Someone hadn't just forged my name, they had impersonated me on a video call, or they had paid off a notary to look the other way. I smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a hunter who just found blood in the snow. "Got you," I whispered. They thought they had buried me in debt. Instead, they had just handed me the murder weapon. I called Marla Quinn at 6 in the morning. Marla was a civil litigation attorney I had worked with on a forensic accounting case 2 years ago involving a corrupt construction firm. She was sharp, unsentimental, and she billed by the quarter hour. I did not want a friend right now. I wanted a weapon. We met at her office at 8 o'clock. She did not offer me coffee or condolences. She simply spread the photos I had taken of my father's documents across her glass conference table. "Here is the reality, Nora," Marla said, tapping a red fingernail on the bridge loan agreement. "Banks do not care about family drama. They care about signatures. To them, this is a valid debt. If we want to void your liability, we cannot just claim you didn't know. We have to prove a chain of criminal impersonation, and that means you have to be willing to file a police report that names specific individuals. Are you ready to do that?" "I am ready to clear my name," I said. "Whoever signed for me is not my problem." "Good," Marla said, "because this gets ugly fast. First step, we freeze everything. Second step, we pull the metadata." We spent the next 3 hours dissecting my financial existence. I logged into the credit bureaus. My score, usually a point of pride, had taken a nosedive. There were 7 new inquiries in the last 6 weeks. A florist, a luxury car rental service, a staging company. "Look at this," I said, pointing to the verification method on the Equifax report. For the car rental, they required 2-factor authentication. Marla leaned in. "What number did they send the code to?" I looked at the masked number. It ended in 8892. I felt a hollow ache in my chest. That was not a burner phone. That was not Gavin's phone. "That is my mother's cell phone number," I said quietly. Marla typed a note on her laptop. "Okay. So Patricia Hughes received the 6-digit code authorizing a rental for a vintage Rolls-Royce. Did she have access to your email?" I thought back. Years ago, when I was in college, we had a shared family email for emergencies and recovery. I hadn't used it in a decade. "There was an old Yahoo account," I said. "I used it as a backup for my main banking profile. I never changed it because I assumed my parents wouldn't hack me." I logged into the old email account. The inbox was full. "Your verification code is here. Confirming your signature. Welcome to American Express." They hadn't just guessed my password. They had systematically used my digital history to build a profile that looked exactly like me, authenticated by my mother's phone and my old email. "We have the how," Marla said. "Now we need the where." She picked up the notarized bridge loan document, the one signed on August 12th at 2:15 in the afternoon. "This is the smoking gun," Marla said. "Digital notary services record the IP address and the video session. We will subpoena that. But first, where were you on August 12th? I opened my work laptop. I pulled up the Hearthline internal logs. August 12th, I read. I clocked in at 7:30 in the morning. I clocked out at 6:45 in the evening. I pulled up the security logs for the evidence room. At 2:15 in the afternoon, I said, turning the screen to Marla. I was inside the Level 4 secure server room at Hearthline. See this timestamp? Entered at 1:50, exited at 3:10. That room is a Faraday cage. Marla, no signal gets in or out. And to get in, I have to scan my retina. Marla smiled, a shark-like baring of teeth. So unless you have a clone, you could not have been on a video call with a notary in North Carolina. This is perfect. It is physically impossible for you to have signed this. But then, Marla stopped. She was rifling through the bottom of the stack of papers I had brought. She pulled out a single, yellowing sheet of paper. Nora, she said, her voice dropping an octave. What is this? I looked. It was a document titled Limited Power of Attorney. My stomach dropped. I remembered it. 4 years ago, my father had a minor stroke. He was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and bills needed to be paid. I had signed a limited power of attorney so I could access his accounts to keep the lights on. I signed that in 2022, I said. It was supposed to be for his medical bills only. It was supposed to expire when he was discharged. Read the fine print, Marla said. Pushing the paper toward me, I scanned the dense legal text. Shall remain in effect until revoked in writing by the principal. I never revoked it in writing, I whispered. I just handed the checkbook back. They are using this, Marla said grimly. They are attaching this old POA to the new contracts to claim they had authority to act on your behalf. That is why the bank approved the bridge loan so fast. They didn't just forge your signature. They piggybacked on your past kindness. It was a masterstroke of manipulation. They had weaponized my own helpfulness against me. My phone buzzed. It was a news alert. Groom in wedding slap video released on $50,000 bail. Then, a text from my mother. Please stop this. Gavin is home. He is devastated. Sloan is inconsolable. If you sue us, you kill this family. Just let us pay you back slowly. Do it for Sloan. I showed the text to Marla. Do not reply, Marla ordered. I am not going to, I said. I am done negotiating with terrorists, even if they are related to me. We are going to draft a cease and desist, Marla said, typing furiously, and we are going to file an affidavit of forgery. We will attach the retina scan logs from your work. We will blow that POA out of the water by proving it was limited to medical context and that using it for a wedding loan is a breach of fiduciary duty. I do not want to destroy them, I said, staring at the yellowing paper. I really don't, but I will not let them drown me to save themselves. You are not destroying them. Nora, Marla said, not looking up. Gravity is, you are just stepping out from underneath the falling rock. Suddenly, the landline on Marla's desk rang. She picked it up, listened for a moment, and then her eyebrows shot up. She hit the speaker button. Say that again, Marla said. This is the billing department for Lux Lighting. A woman's voice crackled over the speaker. We are returning your call regarding the dispute on the deposit. We just wanted to clarify something. Go ahead, Marla said. Her eyes locked on mine. We have a note here from the account manager, the woman said. When the contract was negotiated, the client specifically requested that all invoices be sent to a Nora Hughes. We asked if we should copy the bride, Sloan, on the correspondence. I held my breath. And what did the client say? Marla asked. He said no, the woman replied. Mr. Mercer was very clear. He said, and I'm quoting the notes here, do not bother the bride with the boring financial stuff. Her sister Nora handles all the money. Just send the bill to Nora. She will sign whatever needs to be signed. She loves taking care of us. The room went silent. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't my parents panicking and using the wrong card. It was Gavin Mercer, the man who had banned me from the venue, the man who had slapped my sister, had explicitly set me up as the financier of his ego trip. He had orchestrated it. He had directed the vendors to me while simultaneously blocking me from the event. He wanted my money, but he didn't want my eyes. "Thank you," Marla said, and hung up. She looked at me. "That changes things. That is not just fraud. That is premeditated malice. He was counting on you being too soft to fight back." I stood up and walked to the window. I looked down at the city streets, people going about their Tuesday, oblivious to the war being waged in this office. "He made one mistake," I said, my reflection in the glass looking harder, older than I remembered. "What is that?" Marla asked. "He thought I was the sister," I said. "He forgot I was the investigator." I did not sleep that night. My apartment became a command center, the air conditioning humming a low, monotonous rhythm against the silence of the city. I was no longer looking at a wedding disaster. I was looking at a corporate structure designed to extract wealth. I had Marla's voice in my head. Prove the pattern. So I stopped looking for Gavin Mercer in Charleston and started looking for him in the past. The internet is vast, but it is also permanent. People think deleting a profile erases them, but cached data is like a fossil record. I used an archival search engine to dig into the digital footprint of the man who had slapped my sister. I found a profile on a defunct event planning forum from 5 years ago. The photo was younger, the jawline less defined, but the eyes were the same, predatory and cold. The name attached to the profile was not Gavin Mercer. It was Gavin Vance. I ran the name Gavin Vance through the National Civil Court database. A hit lit up the screen in Phoenix, Arizona. It was a civil suit filed in 2019. The plaintiff was a woman named Elena Rosales. The cause of action was breach of contract and misappropriation of investment funds. I pulled the docket. It was a classic Ponzi scheme setup, but small scale. Gavin had convinced investors to fund a series of luxury pop-up dinners that never happened. The suit was settled out of court for an undisclosed amount, likely sealing the record, but the filing detailed his method. He would charm a target, gain access to their social circle, create a buzz, collect deposits, and then vanish when the vendors started asking for checks. He had not just appeared in Charleston. He had migrated here because he had burned his hunting grounds in the desert. I switched tabs to the South Carolina Secretary of State website. I wanted to know where the money from my father's bridge loan and the wedding registry was actually going. I searched for the vendors listed on the invoices I had photographed at my father's house. The florist was real, the caterer was real, but the media company, the one contracted for photography, videography, and digital storytelling, stopped me cold. Mercer Bridal Media, LLC. I clicked on the filing history. The company had been incorporated 4 months ago. The registered agent was Gavin Mercer. The business address was a UPS store box in a strip mall 3 miles from my parents' house. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. Gavin had not just hired a videographer, he had hired himself. He had created a shell company to invoice the wedding for media services. That meant the $15,000 my father thought he was paying for a documentary team was actually being paid directly into a bank account Gavin controlled. But it got worse. I looked at the online registry for the wedding. The honey fund that guests had been pouring money into for months. The website usually directs funds to a personal PayPal or Venmo. I inspected the page source code, looking for the redirect link. The funds were not going to a joint account for Sloan and Gavin. They were being routed to a business account associated with Mercer Bridal Media, LLC. He was laundering the wedding gifts. Every toaster, every check, every contribution to their dream honeymoon in Bali was flowing into a corporate shell that only he could access. I sat back, rubbing my eyes. It was brilliant in its cruelty. He had turned his own wedding into a money laundering operation. Then I remembered the stack of papers my father had left. I dug through them until I found the vendor contracts again. I needed to see the videography contract. I found it. It was standard boilerplate, except for one clause on the last page. Addendum B, cancellation and liability. In the event of event cancellation, interruption, or negative publicity resulting in loss of revenue for the vendor. The client agrees to indemnify the vendor for the full contract amount plus damages. The vendor was Gavin's company. The client was Sloan. There was a signature at the bottom. It was Sloan's shaking, loopy script, but right next to it, under the line for witness, was another signature. Patricia Hughes, my mother. My mother had witnessed a contract that effectively said if the wedding went south, if, say, a video of the groom slapping the bride went viral, Sloan would owe Gavin's company damages. I grabbed my phone and dialed the number for Elena Rosales, the plaintiff from the Arizona lawsuit. It was a long shot. It was late in Phoenix. She answered on the second ring. Hello? Ms. Rosales, my name is Nora Hughes. I'm calling from Charleston, South Carolina. I believe you knew a man named Gavin Vance. There was a silence on the line so profound, I thought the call had dropped. Then, a sharp intake of breath. Is he using the name Mercer now? She asked. Her voice was brittle, tired. Yes, I said. He just married my sister, or tried to. I saw the video, Elena said. A friend sent it to me. I didn't recognize him at first without the beard, but then I saw the eyes and the slap. Did he hit you? I asked. No, Elena said. He never hit me. He hit the wall next to my head. He threw plates. He created chaos. He would explode over nothing, a late dinner, a wrong look, and then he would turn it around. He would say, "Look what you made me do. Elena, you know I have stress. You are not supporting me." And I would end up apologizing to him for making him break my own dishes. He isolates them, I said, looking at the empty chair where my father had sat. He isolates the money, Elena corrected. He makes you feel like you are a team, building an empire, but you are just the investor, and when the money runs out, or when you start asking to see the bank statements, he detonates the relationship and moves to the next town. Thank you, Elena, I said. Get her out, she whispered. He will not stop until she is bankrupt or broken. Usually both. I hung up. I looked at the whiteboard where I had been mapping out the connections, the timeline, the fake notary, the shell company. Suddenly, the last piece of the puzzle clicked into place. The reason for my exile. My mother had said Gavin found me critical. My father said I was intense. No, that wasn't it. I looked at my business card sitting on the desk. Nora Hughes, senior forensic analyst. Gavin Mercer didn't care about my personality. He didn't care about my relationship with Sloan. He cared about my profession. He knew that if I was invited to the wedding, I would be involved in the planning. I would have asked to see the vendor contracts. I would have Googled Mercer Bridal Media. I would have asked why the registry funds were going to an LLC. He couldn't have a forensic accountant sitting in the front row of his fraud. He had manipulated my parents' insecurities, played on their fear of conflict, and used their own desperation to keep the one person who could expose him as far away as possible. He had weaponized my family against me to protect his revenue stream. My phone buzzer. I looked down. It was a text from Sloan. For the last 48 hours, she had been silent, a ghost in her own tragedy. I opened the message. Sister, it read. I stared at the word. Sloan usually called me Nora, or Hey, or occasionally a bratty nickname from our childhood. She hadn't called me sister with a capital S since we were little girls hiding from thunderstorms under a blanket fort. Sister. I am looking at the bank app on my phone. The joint account is empty. He said he moved it to a savings account for safety, but I cannot see it, and I just found a credit card in his wallet with the name Gavin Vance. I felt a surge of protective adrenaline that was sharper than anything I had felt before. Where are you? I typed back. I am in the bathroom at the hotel. She wrote, He is asleep. He took sleeping pills. Mom is in the next room. But she keeps telling me to stop checking my phone because it upsets me. Sloan, I typed, my fingers flying. Listen to me very carefully. Do not wake him. Do not talk to Mom. Take screenshots of everything you see on that app. Email them to me. then delete the sent email. A pause. 3 dots danced on the screen. I am scared, she wrote. I do not know who I am marrying. I closed my eyes for a second, letting the grief wash over me. She was right. She wasn't marrying a man. She was marrying a corporation designed to consume her. You are not marrying him, I wrote back. We are going to annul this. But I need you to be brave. Can you do that? He hit me. Nora, she replied, and then he told me it was because I stood too close to him. I know. I wrote, I am going to make sure he never hits anyone again. But I need those screenshots, and then I need you to wait for my signal. I set the phone down. The web was visible now. The strands of silk were actually wires of debt and deceit, wrapped tight around my family. But Gavin had made a mistake. He thought he had trapped a fly. He didn't realize he had just invited a spider into his parlor. I pulled up the draft of the affidavit Marla and I were working on. I added a new section. Evidence of money laundering via shell company. I was not going to scream. I was not going to make a scene. I was going to dismantle him, dollar by dollar, untruth by untruth, until there was nothing left but the man named Gavin Vance. Standing alone in a courtroom with nowhere to hide, I agreed to meet Sloane at the desolate end of the waterfront park, far away from the pineapple fountain where tourists usually congregated. I gave her specific conditions. Come alone. If I saw Mom's sedan or Dad's truck within a 3-block radius, I would walk away and never look back. No mediators, no emotional ambushes, just the two of us and the truth. I sat on a concrete bench facing the harbor, checking my watch. It was 2:00 in the afternoon. At 2:05, a taxi pulled up. Sloane stepped out. She looked smaller than I remembered. She was wearing oversized sunglasses and a hoodie that belonged to our father, the sleeves swallowing her hands. She walked toward me with the hesitation of a stray animal approaching a porch, unsure if it was going to be fed or kicked. She sat on the other end of the bench, leaving 2 feet of empty space between us. She took off her sunglasses. The makeup was heavy, but it could not hide the yellowish-green bruise blossoming on her cheekbone. It was the ugly, silent aftermath of the violence the world had seen in high definition. Distinct, isn't it? She asked, her voice trembling but surprisingly clear. In the video, it looked fast. In the mirror, it looked slow. Are you safe? I asked. I did not hug her. I did not bridge the gap. I am at a motel in West Ashley, she said. Mom thinks I'm at the spa. Dad thinks I'm sleeping. I told them I needed 3 hours to decompress. Why did you cut me out, Sloane? I asked. I needed to know. Before we could fix the legal mess, I needed to fix the narrative. Was it just the money? Sloane looked at the water. He started it 6 months ago. Every time I mentioned your name, he would sigh. He would say, Nora thinks you are a mess. You know, Nora told me she is surprised I'm marrying someone so unorganized. He planted these little seeds. He told me you called my job a joke. He told me you thought I was lucky he even looked at me. I never said those things, I said. I know that now, Sloane whispered. But he was so convincing. He made it us against the world. He said you were jealous because you were nearly 40 and alone. And I was the one getting the fairy tale. He said if you came to the wedding, you would just sit there judging every dollar we spent. Mom and Dad, they just went along with it because they were terrified of losing him. They thought he was the golden ticket. She reached into her oversized pocket and pulled out a folded document. It was crumpled, as if she had been clenching it in her fist for hours. He made me sign this, she said, sliding it across the concrete bench. The morning of the wedding, while I was getting my hair done, he said it was a prenup to protect me. He said because his business was growing so fast. He wanted to make sure I did not have to worry about his corporate liabilities. I picked up the paper. It was short, 2 pages. I scanned the legal jargon, my forensic brain translating the deceit instantly. This was not a prenuptial agreement designed to protect assets. It was a debt assumption agreement. Sloane, I said, my voice flat. This does not protect you. Clause 4 says that in the event of a dissolution of marriage, or any liquidity event. The spouse, that is you, agrees to assume 50% of all pre-existing debts held by the principal, that is Gavin. She stared at me. Debts? He told me he was debt-free. He said he had millions in equity. He has millions in leverage, I corrected. He was trying to offload half of his Arizona bankruptcy and his startup loans onto you before you even cut the cake. If you had signed the marriage license, you would legally own half his failures. Sloan let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. He told me it was because he loved me so much, he wanted to share everything. This is not love, Sloan, I said, putting the paper down. This is a control structure. Love does not ask you to sign a liability waiver while you are putting on your veil. He was not building a life with you. He was building a firewall for his finances. Sloan wiped her eyes with her sleeve. Then, she did something that surprised me. She reached into her other pocket and pulled out a cheap plastic flip phone. It looked like something you would buy at a gas station. I found this in his briefcase, she said. He has 3 of them. I turned it on last night when he was passed out. There is a recording. She pressed a button and set the phone between us. The audio was grainy, but the voice was unmistakable. It was Gavin, speaking to someone, maybe a lawyer, maybe a partner in crime. She is getting suspicious. Gavin's voice sneered from the tiny speaker. But do not worry. If she opens her mouth, I will bury her parents, and if Sloan tries to leave, I will remind her that her precious sister signed the loan documents. If I go down, the whole family goes down. I own them. The recording ended with a click. I looked at the burner phone. That was the leverage. He wasn't just using my money. He was holding my potential financial ruin over Sloan's head to keep her in line. He told me that if I left him, he would sue you for the bridge loan, Sloan said. He said he would make sure you lost your license. That is why I stayed. Nora, I was not trying to protect him. I was trying to protect you. I felt a crack in the wall I had built around myself. Just a small hairline fracture. I do not need your protection. Sloan, I said. I need your testimony. I opened my bag and pulled out a file folder. Inside was a retention agreement for Marla Quinn and a draft of a restraining order. Here is how this works, I said, my tone shifting to professional urgency. We are going to get you a temporary protective order today. Marla is waiting at the courthouse. We will use the medical report from the ER for the bruise. We will use this recording to prove coercion. What about Mom and Dad? Sloan asked, her eyes wide. Mom and Dad are compromised, I said. They are going to want you to reconcile. They are going to talk about appearances. If you want my help, you stop listening to them. You listen to me, and you listen to the lawyer. Can you do that? Sloan looked down at her hands. Do you hate me? The question hung in the humid air between us. It would have been easy to lie. It would have been easy to say no. Of course not. You are my sister. But we were done with lies. I do not hate you, I said. But I hate what you let them do to me. I hate that you stood there in that white dress and let them erase me from your life because it was easier than fighting for me. And I hate that you are sitting here with a bruise on your face because you were taught that keeping a man happy was more important than your own safety. Sloan flinched, but she did not look away. She nodded, accepting the weight of my words. I am sorry, she whispered. I know, I said, but sorry does not pay the $120,000 loan Dad took out in my name. Sloan's head snapped up. 120,000? Yes, I said. So here is the boundary. Sloan, I will help you get out. I will pay for Marla. I will help you find a new apartment. But I am not the family bank anymore. I am not the fixer who writes a check to make the bad feelings go away. We are going to fight this legally, and it is going to be ugly, and Mom is going to cry, and you are going to have to stand next to me and tell the truth, even if it humiliates them. I pushed the retention agreement toward her. If you sign this, you are hiring Marla to represent you in an annulment based on fraud, I said. You are effectively declaring war on your husband, and you are telling Mom and Dad to back off. Sloane looked at the paper. She looked at the burner phone. Then she looked at the water, where the tide was slowly going out, revealing the mud and the sharp oyster shells beneath. She picked up the pen I had placed on the bench. "He told me I was nothing without him," she said, her voice gaining strength. "He told me I was just a pretty face with a credit limit." "He was wrong," I said. Sloane pressed the pen to the paper. She signed her name, not the shaky, loopy signature from the wedding contracts, but a sharp, jagged scrawl, Sloane Hughes. She handed the paper back to me. "Let us go to the courthouse," she said. "I am done being the peacekeeper." For the first time in years, I saw the sister I used to know, the one who used to scrape her knees climbing trees and refuse to cry. She stood up, pulling the hoodie tight around herself. "You drive," she said. "I deleted the Uber app. Gavin was tracking my rides." "I am driving," I confirmed. "And Sloane? Throw the burner phone in the trash can. We have the recording backed up on my cloud. You do not need to carry his garbage anymore." She tossed the phone into the metal bin as we walked to the parking lot. It hit the bottom with a hollow thud. We walked to my car in silence, but it was a companionable silence. We were not fixed. We were not healed. But for the first time in 6 months, we were on the same side of the battle lines. And Gavin Mercer had no idea that he had just united the two people capable of burning his house of cards to the ground. Gavin Mercer did not run. He did not hide. He did what narcissists always do when cornered. He attacked. 3 days after I pulled Sloane out of that hotel room, a courier arrived at my office. He handed me a thick envelope with a red seal. It was a formal demand letter from a lawyer I had never heard of, claiming to represent Gavin Mercer. The letter stated that my malicious distribution of the wedding video and my slanderous interference in his marriage had caused him irreparable professional harm. He was suing me for defamation of character. He was demanding $250,000 in damages. I sat at my desk and laughed. It was a cold, dry sound. He was accusing me of ruining a reputation that he had already destroyed himself, but the lawsuit was not the real weapon. It was a distraction. While I was reading the legal threat, my phone began to buzz with notifications. A new narrative was taking shape online. A TikTok account with the handle Truth-Teller Charleston had posted a series of videos claiming to know the real story. The voiceover, digitally altered, narrated a script that was clearly written by someone who knew our family. "The sister was always jealous," the voice said. "She was cut out of the wedding because she tried to seduce the groom. The slap was staged. She paid the videographer to zoom in. She wants to destroy their love because she is nearly 40 and alone." The comments section, which had been on Sloane's side just days ago, began to turn. People love a villain, and a bitter, spinster sister is a much easier trope to digest than a sociopathic groom. I did not reply. I did not make a reaction video. I did not engage. I knew that in the court of law, tweets are noise, but timestamps are bullets. I turned back to my wall of evidence. I had the timeline mapped out to the second. I had the vendor contract signed on August 12th. I had the biometric logs from my office proving I was in a secure server room at the exact moment Nora Hughes was allegedly signing a bridge loan in a notary's office. I had the IP addresses of the device that accessed my old email account to retrieve the verification codes, an IP address that traced directly to the Wi-Fi router in my parents' living room. Then, Marla called. "He wants to settle," she said, her voice tight with disbelief. "He just sued me for $250,000, I said. "Now he wants to settle?" "He is offering a trade," Marla explained. "He says if you agree to pay off the vendor debt, the full $120,000, and sign a non-disclosure agreement promising never to speak about his business dealings again, he will drop the defamation suit and grant Sloane an uncontested divorce." I leaned back in my chair. It was so transparent it was almost insulting. He did not care about his reputation. He needed cash. He was trying to squeeze one last payout from the family before he skipped town. He was betting that the fear of a public trial would make me open my checkbook. "He is desperate," I said. He knows the fraud investigation is coming. We need to speed it up, Marla said. We need him to admit to the financial structure in writing. We have the shell company, but we need a direct link between him and the fraud. I have an idea, I said. Call the lighting vendor, the one who told us Gavin ordered the invoices to be sent to me. 2 hours later, we set the trap. The lighting vendor, a terrified man named Mr. Henderson, who was more than happy to cooperate to avoid an IRS audit, sent an email to Gavin. The subject line was invoice discrepancy. The email read, Hi Gavin, our accountants are asking about the second set of invoices you requested, the ones with the inflated dates for the insurance claim. Do you want us to proceed with filing those, or should we stick to the original contract amount? Please advise urgently. It was a bait designed to trigger his greed. If he replied and acknowledged the second set of invoices, he was admitting to conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. We waited. The afternoon dragged on. I watched the sun dip lower over the Charleston skyline, turning the harbor a bruised purple. At 5:45, the reply came. Marla forwarded it to me immediately. Gavin had written, Proceed with the second set as discussed. I need the documentation to show a loss due to the disruption. Make sure the dates align with the cancellation policy. Do not CC Nora on this. I stared at the screen. He had walked right into it. He had just confirmed in writing that he was falsifying records to claim insurance money for the wedding disaster he caused. It was wire fraud. It was insurance fraud. And because he used email, it was a federal offense. We got him, I whispered, but the victory was short-lived. My parents had found out about the escalation. My mother called me, not in a rage, but in a panic. She sounded like a woman watching her house burn down and trying to save the curtains. Nora, you have to stop, she begged. Gavin's lawyer called Dad. He said if you pursue this fraud investigation, Gavin will release private emails from Sloan. He will humiliate her. Please, just pay the vendors. We will pay you back. We will sell the boat. Just make it go away. I cannot pay him, Mom, I said, my voice steady. He is a criminal. If I pay him, I am an accomplice. He is family, she cried. Technically, he is still family. You are destroying us over money. I am not destroying you, I said. I am cutting out the cancer. If I stop now, he does this to the next girl and the next family, and I will not have that on my conscience. You are so cold, she wept. You have always been so cold. I hung up. I was not cold. I was just the only one who was not burning with fever. The next day, the family gathered at Aunt Linda's house. It was supposed to be a neutral ground. My parents were there. Sloan was there. I walked in, carrying a briefcase, not a casserole. The tension in the living room was thick enough to choke on. My father refused to look at me. My mother was clutching a tissue, her eyes red and swollen. We need to present a united front, Aunt Linda said, trying to play peacemaker. Nora, surely there is a way to resolve this without the police. There is no united front, I said, standing by the fireplace. There is the victim, and there is the predator, and right now, you are all inviting the predator to dinner. My mother turned to Sloan. Sloan was sitting in the corner, wearing jeans and a t-shirt, looking stripped of all the bridal glamour. Sloan, tell your sister to stop, Mom pleaded. Tell her you want this to be over. Tell her she's hurting you. Sloan looked up. For a moment, she looked like the little girl who used to hide behind Mom's skirt. But then she looked at me. She saw the stack of files in my hand. She saw the refusal to back down in my eyes. She is not hurting me, Mom, Sloan said. Her voice was quiet, but it silenced the room. She is brainwashing you, Mom snapped. She is jealous of you. She wants you to be alone like her. Sloan stood up. She walked to the center of the room. The bruise on her cheek was fading to a dull yellow, but it was still visible under the living room lights. She is not jealous, Sloan said, her voice rising. She is the only one who told me the truth. You told me to stay quiet. You told me to smile when he grabbed my arm. You told me marriage was about compromise. Even when the compromise was my safety, Nora is the only one who told me I didn't have to be a victim. We were trying to protect you, Dad shouted, his face flushing red. You were protecting your reputation. Sloane yelled back, a sound so raw it made Aunt Linda gasp. You were protecting your bridge loan. You sold me out because you didn't want the neighbors to know you were broke. The room went dead silent. The secret was out. The financial rot was exposed. I am filing for annulment, Sloane said, her voice shaking but resolute. And I am testifying against him. And if you stand with him, you are standing against me. My mother looked as if she had been slapped. She sank back into the sofa, covering her face with her hands. Just then, the doorbell rang. The timing was so perfect it felt scripted. Aunt Linda went to answer it. She came back holding a thick envelope. It is for you, Gordon, she said, handing it to my father. My father opened it. His hands were trembling. He pulled out a document stamped with the seal of the Charleston County Court. What is it? Mom whispered. It is a subpoena, Dad said, his voice barely audible. For a grand jury hearing. Regarding the financial activities of Gavin Mercer and Mercer Bridal Media, he looked at the date on the paper. When is it? I asked, knowing the answer before he said it. Next Friday, Dad said, at 6 o'clock in the evening. Next Friday? Mom whispered. That was when we scheduled the reconciliation dinner. We reserved the private room at the Palmetto Club. I looked at them. The irony was a physical weight in the room. They had planned a dinner to pretend everything was fine, to sweep the debris under a rug of expensive linens and wine, but the law did not care about their dinner reservations. I suggest you cancel the reservation, I said, picking up my briefcase. You are going to be busy. You need to find a lawyer, and not the one Gavin recommended. I walked toward the door. Sloane grabbed her purse and followed me. We did not look back at the parents who sat frozen on the floral sofa, holding the court order like a death sentence. The cat-and-mouse game was over. The trap had snapped shut, and now, the only thing left to do was watch the predator realize he was the prey. The mediation room at the Charleston County Courthouse was windowless and smelled faintly of lemon polish and stale anxiety. Gavin sat on the opposite side of the mahogany table, wearing a navy suit that probably cost more than my first car. He looked calm. He looked like the victim. Beside him, his lawyer, a man with a comb-over and a cheap briefcase, was arranging papers with trembling hands. My parents sat in the corner, huddled together on plastic chairs like two teenagers waiting for the principal. Sloane sat next to me. She was not hiding today. She was wearing a structured blazer and her chin was high. My client acknowledges that emotions were high, Gavin's lawyer began, his voice oily. The incident on the video was unfortunate, but it was a reflexive reaction to a manic episode by the bride. We are prepared to offer a statement of regret if Ms. Hughes agrees to drop the defamation claims and honors the outstanding vendor debts. Gavin nodded solemnly. I just want to help her heal, he said, looking at Sloane with a practiced sadness. She was hysterical. I was trying to snap her out of it. Stop, I said. I did not shout. I simply placed a flash drive on the table. We are not here to discuss the slap, I said. The district attorney is handling the assault charges in criminal court. We are here to discuss the systematic theft of $120,000, identity fraud, and racketeering. Gavin's eye twitched. Just a fraction of a millimeter. Allegations, his lawyer scoffed. Evidence, Marla corrected. She stood up and connected her laptop to the room's monitor. The screen lit up with a timeline. It was a masterpiece of forensic accounting. Exhibit A, Marla said. The bridge loan for $120,000. Signed August 12th at 2:15 in the afternoon by a Nora Hughes via an online notary. She clicked a button. A side-by-side comparison appeared. On the left, the notary log. On the right, My biometric time card from Hearthline Claims. At the exact moment this loan was signed, Marla explained, her voice cutting through the air like a scalpel. Nora Hughes was inside a Level 4 secure server room. Her retina scan confirms entry at 1:50 and exit at 3:10. Unless Nora has the ability to be in two places at once, the signature is a forgery. So someone used her name, Gavin said, shrugging. Identity theft happens. It is tragic, but that has nothing to do with me. Exhibit B, Marla continued, ignoring him. The verification. She pulled up the phone records. The notary service sent a one-time password to verify the signer's identity. That password was sent to a mobile number ending in 8. 892. Marla turned to my mother. Patricia, would you like to tell the room whose phone number that is? My mother flinched as if she had been struck. She did not speak. It is Patricia Hughes's cell phone, Marla said, and the email used to receive the document link? That was an old family account accessed from the IP address of the Hughes family residence. My mother was trying to help, Gavin blurted out. She knew Nora would approve it eventually. We were just speeding up the process. Thank you for that admission, I said calmly. But we are not done. Marla clicked to the next slide. It showed a document I had found in the depths of my father's filing cabinet, scanned and enlarged. Exhibit C, Marla said. The limited power of attorney from 2022. The room went silent. My father looked at the floor. You used an expired medical power of attorney to authorize a commercial loan, I said, looking directly at my father. That is not helping. That is fraud. And here is the final nail, Marla said. She pulled up an email chain. This was sent from Patricia Hughes to Gavin Mercer on August 10th. The subject line is Nora's signature sample. On the screen, a high-resolution scan of my signature appeared. It was the one I used on birthday cards. You sent him my signature, I said to my mother. You gave him the template to forge my name. He said it was for the insurance, Mom cried out, unable to stay silent. He said he needed it to bundle the family policies. I did not know it was for a loan. Liar, Gavin shouted. The mask slipped. The cool, collected victim vanished, replaced by the red-faced tyrant from the video. You knew exactly what it was for. You told me Nora had plenty of money and wouldn't miss a few grand in interest. And there it is, I said. The conspiracy. Marla moved to the financial flow chart. We have traced the wedding registry funds. They did not go to a joint account. They went to Mercer Bridal Media, LLC, and from there, they were transferred to a personal account held by Gavin Vance, his former legal name, in the Cayman Islands. I looked at Gavin. We also have the emails where you instructed the vendors to create fake invoices for the insurance claim. That is a federal crime. Gavin, you are not just looking at a lawsuit. You are looking at 10 to 15 years in prison. Gavin stood up. He looked at the door, then at me. He looked like a trapped rat. Sloan signed a prenup, he spat out. She took on half the debt. You cannot touch me. Sloan stood up. She did not look at him. She looked at the mediator. I am not suing because I was slapped, Sloan said. Her voice was steady, resonant. I am suing because I was defrauded. I was induced to sign that agreement under false pretenses. I was told it was asset protection, not debt assumption, and I have a recording of him admitting that he used that debt to blackmail me into silence. She placed the transcript of the burner phone recording on the table. I was not a wife, Sloan said. I was a hostage. The mediator, a retired judge who had seen everything, took off his glasses. He looked at Gavin's lawyer. Counselor, the mediator said, I strongly suggest you advise your client to accept whatever terms Ms. Hughes is offering. If this goes to trial, he will not only lose, he will be destroyed. The terms were harsh. They were absolute. The debt in my name was declared void due to proven identity theft. The bank, faced with our evidence, agreed to pursue Gavin and my parents for the fraud rather than me. Gavin was stripped of everything. The wedding gifts were seized to pay the vendors. The bridge loan was attached to his personal liability. He left the room in handcuffs, as the district attorney had been waiting in the hallway with a warrant for wire fraud. But the hardest part was the family. I sat across from my parents. The table felt like an ocean. "We are so sorry. Nora." My father wept. "We were just desperate. We wanted to be proud." "I have prepared a document," I said. Sliding a paper toward them, it was not a lawsuit, it was a boundary agreement. "You will repay the unauthorized charges on my credit card immediately," I said. "You will never use my name, my social security number, or my image for any financial purpose again. If you do, I will press charges, and from this day forward, you do not contact me directly, you go through Marla." "Nora, please," Mom sobbed. "We are your parents." "No," I said. "You are the people who sold me to a con artist because you wanted a party." They signed. They had no choice. As we packed up to leave, I did one last thing. I had recovered a small settlement from the venue for the negligence regarding security. It was not a fortune, but it was significant. I handed a check to Marla. "What is this?" Sloan asked, looking over my shoulder. "It is an education trust," I said. "For your future children, or for you, if you want to go back to school." Sloan looked at me, tears welling in her eyes. "Why? After everything?" "Because the cycle stops here," I said. "The next generation will not be a rigorous asset. They will be free." I walked out of the courthouse and into the evening air. The humidity had broken. The sky was a clear, impossible blue. I drove home alone. I walked into my apartment. I did not turn on the lights. I poured a glass of wine and sat by the window, looking out at the city lights. My phone was silent. No panicked texts, no demands, no guilt trips. I thought I would feel lonely. I thought the victory would feel hollow. But as I took a sip of wine, I realized the silence was not empty. It was full. It was full of peace. It was full of the future I own. Fully and completely. I smiled, a small, genuine curve of my lips. The best revenge was not destroying them. It was realizing that I did not need them to be whole. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I would love to know where you are tuning in from. So please drop a comment below and share your thoughts on Nora's journey. Do not forget to subscribe to the Familyrevengestores channel, like this video, and smash that hype button to help this story reach even more people.